I walked into the conference room expecting our usual Monday morning briefing. Instead, I saw an ultrasound image on the big screen. My husband Mark's hand rested protectively on Tara's thigh. She whispered something I could barely hear from the doorway. "She's going to find out eventually." Mark's voice was low but clear. "Not today. She can't handle it." They both froze when they finally noticed me standing there. The air left my lungs. My stomach dropped so fast I thought I might be sick right there on the carpet. The ultrasound showed a baby. Tiny, perfect, about 20 weeks along. My husband had impregnated my business partner, and they thought I wouldn't find out. My name is Callie, and this is the day everything changed. Before I continue, please like and subscribe, then turn on the notification bell to listen to more stories. Comment the city and state you are watching from and let me know what betrayals you have experienced in the past. Mark and I had built Horizon Marketing from nothing. It started in our apartment 5 years ago with my laptop, my client list, and my ideas. I worked 18-hour days while he handled the numbers. We were partners in everything, or so I thought. 3 years ago, Mark insisted we hire Tara as an intern. She was shy, barely spoke during meetings, always taking notes. I felt sorry for her and became her mentor. I taught her everything I knew about client relations and campaign strategies. Now she stood in our conference room, 6 months pregnant, rubbing her belly like she owned the place. Mark stood beside her with his hand on her back, looking at that ultrasound like it was his greatest achievement. The irony burned through me like acid. I walked straight to the bathroom and locked myself in a stall. I didn't scream. I didn't cry out loud. I just shook, my whole body trembling as I pressed my back against the cold metal door. My breathing came in short, painful gasps. But even in that moment, something in my brain stayed clear. I forced myself to remember details. The ultrasound date stamp showed the appointment was from last Thursday. The meeting had been scheduled for 9 o'clock. Tara's exact words echoed in my head. Then something else clicked. If the baby was 20 weeks along, that meant the affair had started 6 months ago. Right around the time Mark suggested we redistribute responsibilities at work. Right when I started feeling pushed aside. When I returned to my office, the atmosphere felt different. Strange. Co-workers avoided eye contact. The receptionist gave me a sad smile that made my skin crawl. They knew. How long had they known? Tara walked past my door twice, glancing in with something that looked like pity mixed with triumph. She touched her belly each time, making sure I saw. During lunch, I noticed Mark and Tara eating together in his office with the door closed. They never used to do that. I started paying attention to other things I'd missed. The way people stopped talking when I entered the break room. The whispered conversations that died when I walked past. How Mark had been taking calls outside lately, claiming it was too loud inside. Mark's mother showed up that afternoon without warning. She walked straight past me to Tara's desk, carrying a gift bag with baby clothes spilling out. "Congratulations, dear," she said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "I'm so thrilled to finally have a grandchild." She turned to me with cold eyes. Some women aren't meant to be mothers. Or leaders for that matter. It's better to accept your limitations. The words hit me like a slap. I stood there, frozen, unable to form a response. She smiled and walked away, her heels clicking on the tile floor. As I turned toward my office, our junior accountant, Bethany, touched my arm. She leaned close and whispered, "You deserve so much better than this." Then she quickly walked away, leaving me standing there with tears in my eyes. That night I couldn't sleep. At 2 a.m, I opened my laptop and logged into our company accounts. I'd always handled the finances, but Mark had asked for access months ago to help ease my workload. What I found made my blood run cold. Expensive dinners charged to the company card. Restaurants Mark and I never went to. Hotel rooms. A jewelry purchase for $3,000. Tara's name appeared on expense approvals she had no authority to make. Money transfers I didn't remember signing off on. They weren't just having an affair. They were stealing from the company, from me, to fund their relationship. My hands shook as I started taking screenshots of everything. The next morning I called a business attorney. Her name was Vanessa Park, and she came highly recommended. I sat in her office and laid out everything. The affair, the baby, the suspicious finances. She listened carefully, taking notes. When I finished, she looked up at me with sharp eyes. If what you're telling me is documented, they've breached your partnership agreement in multiple ways. We can work with this. For the first time since seeing that ultrasound, I felt something other than pain. It was small, just a spark, but it was there. Not revenge. Not yet. Just the possibility of fairness. Of justice. Of taking back what was mine. She handed me her card. Start documenting everything. Every conversation, every transaction, every interaction. We're going to need it. The following week, Mark and Tara called me into a conference room for what they called a performance review. I hadn't had a performance review in 3 years. We owned the company together. Mark sat across from me with a folder of printed papers. We've been noticing some concerning patterns, Callie. Emotional instability. Missed deadlines. Clients have complained about your attitude. None of it was true. My clients loved me. I'd never missed a deadline in my life. Tara spoke up, her voice dripping with fake concern. Maybe you should take some time off. For your mental health. We can handle things here. He stayed calm. He nodded. I even thanked them for their concern. Inside I was taking mental notes of every lie, every manipulation. Their confidence was growing, and that would make them careless. 2 days later I received a text message that changed everything. It was from Tara, but it wasn't meant for me. She'll be out sooner than we thought. Just keep pushing. She's almost broken. My phone showed it was sent to our group chat by accident. She'd meant to send it privately to Mark. Within seconds she sent another message. Sorry, wrong chat. But I'd already screenshot it. I forwarded it to Vanessa immediately. Then I did something unexpected. I laughed. Not a happy laugh. A bitter, sharp sound that surprised me. Something shifted inside me in that moment. The hurt began transforming into something harder, clearer, more focused. I texted back. No problem. Mistakes happen. I started applying for jobs that week. Not because I intended to leave my company, but because I needed to know I had options. That I wasn't trapped. 3 companies responded within days. One interview went exceptionally well. The CEO told me, "We've been following your work for years. If you're interested, we'd love to have someone with your expertise." They offered me a position on the spot, a good salary, benefits, and respect. I didn't accept immediately, but knowing it was there changed something inside me. I stood taller, breathed easier. For the first time in weeks I felt human again. I wasn't trapped in this nightmare. I had choices, and that made all the difference. A week later, one of our biggest clients, Mr. Harrison, pulled me aside after a meeting. He ran a law firm that gave us over $200,000 in business annually. He looked uncomfortable but determined. "Callie, I need to tell you something," he said quietly. "If you ever leave this company, we're leaving with you. You're the only reason we've stayed. Your strategies, your professionalism, that's what we value." I felt my throat tighten. "Thank you. That means more than you know." He nodded. "I've heard rumors about some internal issues. Just know that you have allies. Real ones." I realized then that I had something Mark and Tara didn't understand. Loyalty. Trust. Real relationships built on years of good work. They thought they could push me out and keep everything. They were wrong. The mask slipped 2 days later. Tara had a complete meltdown in front of the entire office. I'd asked her to revise a presentation. A simple request, the kind I made every week. But this time she exploded. "You're just jealous," she screamed at me in the middle of the open office. "You can't stand that Mark chose me. That I'm having his baby and you're not." Everyone stopped working. Phones were forgotten. Keyboards went silent. Tara's face was red, tears streaming down her cheeks. She looked unhinged, desperate. Mark rushed over to calm her down, but the damage was done. I stood there, completely calm, which seemed to make her angrier. Later, Bethany quietly told me she'd recorded the whole thing on her phone. Just in case you need it, she whispered. That night, I went through my email archives more carefully. I found something that made my hands shake, but this time with anger, not fear. Tara had forwarded our confidential client strategies to an outside consultant. The same consultant Mark had been paying under the table using company funds. They were planning to steal our clients, build a competing firm, push me out completely and take everything I'd built. The email chain was all there, preserved in our server. Dates, times, attachments, everything. I forwarded it all to Vanessa with a simple message. Is this enough? Her response came within minutes. More than enough. This is corporate theft. Start preparing. I closed my laptop and smiled in the darkness. Mark's mother returned the following Monday. She'd clearly been told to intimidate me further. She cornered me in the parking lot as I was leaving. You need to step aside, Callie. Let them build their family. Let them run the company properly. You're just making this harder on everyone. Something inside me snapped. Not into pieces but into place. I straightened my shoulders and looked her directly in the eyes. My voice came out steady and cold. You're going to regret saying that. All of you will. Her eyes widened slightly. She opened her mouth to respond, but I was already walking away. I heard her call after me, but I didn't turn around. The time for being quiet and polite was over. The rise had begun. Vanessa's office was organized chaos. Documents covered every surface. She'd spent the weekend building my case, and now she laid it all out on her conference table. Financial records, email evidence, text messages, witness statements from Bethany and 2 other employees who'd contacted her directly. Here's the situation, she said, pointing to the papers. They violated the partnership agreement in at least 6 different ways. Misuse of funds, theft of intellectual property, creating a hostile work environment. The pregnancy doesn't protect them from any of this. She looked at me seriously. You can take the company. Fully, cleanly, legally. They'll have no grounds to fight it. My fear transformed into something stronger. Something like steel. I was ready. Let's do it, I said. I returned to work the next day with a smile on my face. I was polite, soft-spoken. I brought coffee for the staff. I even complimented Tara on her maternity dress. She looked confused at first, then relieved. She thought I'd given up. That I'd accepted my fate. Mark became bolder. He moved into the corner office. The one we'd agreed would stay empty until we could afford to expand. He started signing contracts without consulting me. Making decisions like I didn't exist. Perfect. Every choice he made without my approval was another breach of our agreement. I documented everything. Took photos. Saved emails. I was building an airtight case, and they were handing me the materials themselves, gift-wrapped with their own arrogance. The job offer became official. The CEO called me personally to confirm. We're excited to have you join our team, Callie. Whenever you're ready. I signed the contract that afternoon. The salary was actually higher than what I was currently paying myself. The benefits were exceptional. But more than that, it was a safety net. Insurance. Proof that I didn't need Mark or Tara or Horizon Marketing to survive. I was untouchable now. They just didn't know it yet. That evening, I met with Vanessa one final time before we executed our plan. Are you absolutely sure? She asked. Once we do this, there's no going back. I thought about that ultrasound. About Tara's pitying looks. About Mark's mother's cruelty. About months of lies and betrayal. I'm sure, I said. The freeze order hit our company bank account on a Wednesday morning at 9 o'clock. Mark's phone rang first. Then Tara's. Then the office line. I watched from my desk as panic spread across their faces. Mark tried to make a transfer and couldn't. Tara tried to approve an expense. Denied. Within an hour, they received notice of an emergency partnership meeting scheduled for the next day. Attendance mandatory. Legal representation recommended. Mark stormed into my office, his face white. "What did you do?" "I protected my interests," I said calmly. "See you tomorrow." The office buzzed with whispers all day. Bethany smiled at me as she walked past. Others nodded in support. The tide was turning, and everyone could feel it. The meeting room was tense. Mark and Tara sat on one side with a lawyer who looked barely out of law school. Vanessa and I sat across from them, our documents organized in neat stacks. Vanessa began. Unauthorized expenses totaling $73,000. Confidential information leaked to outside parties. Multiple violations of the partnership agreement. And using a personal relationship to create a hostile work environment. She slid evidence across the table. Each document more damaging than the last. Mark's face went from white to red. Tara started crying. Then Mark's mother burst through the door. "This is ridiculous. My son built this company. Ma'am, this is a private legal meeting," Vanessa said firmly. "You need to leave." She didn't leave. She screamed at me, called me vindictive and cruel. Their own lawyer looked embarrassed. Finally, Mark whispered, "What do you want?" The restructuring took less than a week. Based on the breach clauses in our original agreement, Mark and Tara were removed from all operational roles. My ownership increased to 85%. They retained small shares but no voting rights and no access to finances. I offered them severance. Smaller than they deserved but enough to prove I wasn't motivated by cruelty. Just justice. Vanessa advised against it, but I insisted. I wanted to stay on the moral high ground. Mark signed the papers without looking at me. Tara couldn't stop crying. They cleaned out their desks that Friday afternoon while I watched from my office window. The staff watched too, some openly pleased, others just relieved the tension was finally over. When they left, I called an all-hands meeting. "We're moving forward," I told everyone. "Stronger than before." The financial reality hit Mark and Tara within weeks. According to the settlement, they had to reimburse the company for personal expenses charged to business accounts. $73,000 plus legal fees. Their savings evaporated overnight. Tara's prenatal care became a source of stress. I heard through mutual contacts that they'd had to switch to a cheaper insurance plan. That they'd moved from their downtown apartment to a small place outside the city. Mark's mother showed up at the bank trying to argue about the settlement. She demanded to speak to a manager, threatened legal action, caused such a scene that security escorted her out. A friend who worked there texted me about it. I didn't respond. Their problems weren't mine anymore. Our clients stayed. Every single one. In fact, 2 of them increased their contracts after Mark and Tara left. Mr. Harrison told me privately. "We're relieved, honestly. We were worried about working with them." The office staff rallied around me completely. Bethany got a promotion. I hired 3 new people who brought fresh energy and ideas. We landed 2 major new accounts within a month. Horizon Marketing didn't just survive, it thrived. Meanwhile, Mark and Tara couldn't find work. Word had spread in our industry about what they'd done. No one wanted to hire people known for stealing from their own partner. Tara's family blamed Mark for everything. His mother stopped speaking to him when she realized the financial damage. Their world got smaller and smaller while mine expanded. 6 months later they showed up at my new office. I'd moved Horizon into a bigger space downtown, with windows overlooking the city. I was in a meeting when my assistant knocked. "You have visitors. Mark and Tara. They have a baby with them." My heart clenched but I kept my face neutral. "Give me 5 minutes." When I walked out to the lobby, I barely recognized them. Mark looked exhausted, his clothes wrinkled. Tara held a tiny infant, dark circles under her eyes. The baby was crying softly. "We can't afford rent this month," Mark said quietly. "We're being evicted. Please, Callie. We need help. Just temporary. We'll pay you back." I looked at them, really looked at them. Part of me still hurt, but a bigger part of me felt nothing. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I walked them to the elevator, then down to their car in the parking garage. The silence was heavy. The baby had stopped crying and was sleeping in Tara's arms. At their car, an old sedan, not the luxury vehicle Mark used to drive, I finally spoke. I'm not here to punish you. But I won't save you either. You made your choices. Now you live with them. Tara's face crumpled. She started sobbing, careful not to wake the baby. Mark stared at the ground, his shoulders sagging. There are resources, I continued quietly. Social services, assistance programs. But I can't be your solution. That wouldn't help any of us. Mark looked up at me with hollow eyes. I'm sorry. For everything. I know, I said. Then I walked away, back to my company, my life, my future. I stood in the lobby of Horizon Marketing, watching my team through the glass walls. They were laughing, collaborating, building something real. The company had doubled in size. We'd won 3 industry awards. I'd been featured in a business magazine. Mark's mother had sent an apology letter last month. I never opened it. She didn't deserve my time or energy. Some things were better left in the past. My assistant brought me coffee, the good kind, from the cafe downstairs. Your 3 o'clock is here early, she said. The potential client from Boston smiled. Perfect. Let's show them what we can do. As I walked toward the conference room, I thought about that ultrasound image. The moment my old life ended and this new one began. I didn't take everything from Mark and Tara. They handed it to me themselves, piece by piece, through their own greed and betrayal. My silence had become justice. My success had become the only revenge I needed. And I was finally completely free.